طلع البدر علينا طلع البدر علينا.
अब मैं गुजारिश करूँगा मोहतरम डॉक्टर जाहिद इकबाल साहिब जो चेयरमैन अल-हिदाया यूके हैं, ये वो तशरीफ़ लाएँ और अपने ख़यालात का इजहार फरमाएँ. तशरीफ़ लाते हैं मोहतरम डॉक्टर जाहिद इकबाल साहिब.
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Your Eminence, Hazur Sayyidi Shaykh-ul-Islam, Dr. Muhammad Tahir al-Qadri, respected scholars and ulama, honored guests, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're gathered here by the grace of Allah Almighty and the blessings of His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the European Peace Conference, for which I will give my hearty congratulations to my brothers and sisters of Denmark and Minhaj al-Quran Denmark. And it is an honor and a pleasure and a privilege.
And congratulations to the delegates from all over Europe.
Welcome to the delegates from all over Europe, from all countries in Europe. Welcome. And it's a pleasure for me to say a few words to you today on the topic of His Eminence Shaykh-ul-Islam's endeavors and works in the field of tackling extremism and terrorism and promoting interfaith harmony. It is a topic I have a few minutes only to cover today, but which would justifiably need many hours. So inevitably, I can only summarize the position. So first of all, I will cover Shaykh-ul-Islam's contribution to the struggle against religious extremism and terrorism first, and then afterwards move on to his contribution to interfaith harmony. Terrorist attacks, as you know, are a tragic reality of our time. All over the world, countless thousands of innocent people have been brutally and mercilessly killed and butchered by terrorists. It is unfortunate indeed that religion is used to justify these attacks. More specifically, it is Islam in the main which has become associated with religious extremism and terrorism. So the question is, what has Shaykh-ul-Islam, Dr. Muhammad Tahir al-Qadri, done to tackle this phenomenon? And I will divide his efforts into two broad areas. Firstly, his intellectual efforts, and secondly, his spiritual efforts. When considering Hazur Sayyidi Shaykh-ul-Islam's intellectual efforts, one of course must examine his academic works, his books and publications, which number in their thousands. And among them, there are many which deal with the subject of radicalization and terrorism. But we must also consider his lectures, of which he has also delivered thousands. He's lectured all over the world to diverse audiences, whether young Muslims, policymakers, politicians, academics, scholars, or the media. And in doing so, he has been raising awareness about the roots of extremism and terrorism to enable the various agencies and organizations to effectively tackle the problem of terrorism. And at the same time, his aim is always to present Islam in its true form, to reclaim it from the terrorists and the extremists. He has defined the true meaning of the word jihad and clarified misunderstandings around that term for both Muslims and non-Muslims. And he's clarified the concept of democracy, khilafah, and other controversies. So, whether he is speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos or speaking at Georgetown University to an audience of Army, Navy, and Air Force officers, cadets, and policymakers, or whether any other body or organization, His Eminence Shaykh-ul-Islam strives to promote the true and peaceful face of Islam. But his intellectual endeavors in this cause for the young people really stand out. I want to mention here, and many of you know this, the Al-Hidayah camps, organized every year since 2004. Thousands of young Muslims have attended Al-Hidayah, and it has changed their lives and their attitudes, listening directly and sitting in the sohbah of Huzur Shaykh-ul-Islam. And in fact, Al-Hidayah has been labelled by the media as the first and biggest anti-terror camp in the UK. Let me tell you, my brothers and sisters, there is a large-scale process going on where the religious sentiments of young Muslims are exploited by extremist preachers as a means to induct them into extremism and ultimately terrorist activities. And the Al-Hidayah camps are a form of protection against this brainwashing process. Think about this. If Shaykh-ul-Islam had not begun this process all these years ago, where would you all be now? Think about it. And a notable mention for the Peaceful Humanity Wembley conference of last year, where 13,000 people filled the Wembley arena, where His Eminence Shaykh-ul-Islam gave his message of peace and harmony. And through all these intellectual endeavors, he has been winning the hearts and minds of the people and the youngsters. I mentioned the books, and out of the numerous I could mention, we can focus here on one in particular, the acclaimed Fatwa on Terrorism and Suicide Bombings, launched here in Denmark just a few days ago. A significant and historic ruling, a jurisprudentially authoritative document, an absolute condemnation of terrorism without excuse, pretext, or exception. And you can recall at the time of its first launch, it received worldwide attention. And inshallah, you will see in future how significant this fatwa is. So I have talked about the intellectual efforts of Huzur Sayyidi Shaykh-ul-Islam. I will now move on to his spiritual efforts. It is not an exaggeration to say that His Eminence Shaykh-ul-Islam's efforts have led to a revolution in the Islamic world, in reviving the concept of the inner dimensions of Islam. Before His Eminence started spreading his message, the Islamic world was moving like a train towards religious conservatism, closed-mindedness, literalism, and black and white thinking. And all these things are precursors, are conditions of violent extremism and terrorism. So he has inspired Minhaj al-Quran centers all over the world, promoting spiritual development, developing patience and moderation, promoting service for humanity, promoting human values, human rights, nurturing the qualities of forbearance and gentleness, of peace and integration, of respect and dignity, in spite of the global situation of the Muslims. Not of shouting in the streets, not of rude and arrogant behavior and protests, as you see many Muslims, young Muslims around the world today. His lectures on spiritual topics are shown all over the world to audiences numbering in their millions, and whole families are being turned away from religious conservatism, and through Shaykh-ul-Islam's lectures have tasted the true flavor of attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His beloved Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And by doing so, how many potential extremists living among these families have been stopped in their development? Countless, I believe. And I've witnessed that wherever His Eminence Shaykh-ul-Islam goes, families, young, the old, men, women, flock to him at airports, on the streets, and declare how their Islam was saved by watching his lectures, how they were saved from the clutches of religious conservatism and extremism. Huzur Sayyidi Shaykh-ul-Islam almost single-handedly restored and revived the spiritual dimension of Islam, bringing back that spiritual aspect that had been missing for almost 2 centuries. And inshallah, through his works, this will continue. So, in ending, we've talked about the works and struggles in the area of preventing terrorism and extremism. Let us now consider his works briefly in the area of interfaith activity. Many people, including Muslims, find it shocking to see how His Eminence Shaykh-ul-Islam meets with Christian priests, Hindus, Sikhs, Jews, and how much respect he affords them, to the extent of allowing them to hold prayers inside our masjids and mosques. And what better symbol of interfaith tolerance and harmony is this? Ask any Christian, ask any Hindu or Sikh in Pakistan, and I'm sure they will tell you their own one and only benefactor is Hazur Sayyidi Shaykh-ul-Islam in that country. He's the only scholar calling for their rights. So, in ending, my brothers and sisters, I hope I have been able to give you some idea of Hazur Sayyidi Shaykh-ul-Islam's efforts. But this exercise should not be just talking about Shaykh-ul-Islam, but about learning his teachings and putting his teachings into practice. May Allah enable us to follow in Hazur Sayyidi Shaykh-ul-Islam's footsteps to work towards eliminating all kinds of terror, oppression, extremism, and bringing peace, love, and knowledge to our societies. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ.